Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to start the next session now. My name is Monica Harry and I lead up the content team at SNOMED International. And just a reminder that any questions people in the room have at the end of the presentation, we'll deal with those and we'll use the microphones. And people online, if you have questions, you can go ahead and type them in the Q&A and I'll pick them up and present them to Daniel. So today's topic is collaborative value set development for laboratory medicine in the EU, presented by Daniel Karlsson of the Swedish eHealth Agency.
Correct. So welcome everyone to this session on what we did for actually a couple of years now in various projects within the European Union. I've, like same as the speakers before me, this was not done by myself alone, and had it been, it wouldn't have been very good, likely. So I would like to mention the colleagues which helped preparing the abstract and the slides. So that's myself, Daniel Karlsson. We have Hinek Krušik from the Czech Republic, and Petra Lavlikova, Gunnar Nordin, and Rebecca Seder from Sweden, and Equalis Laboratory Quality Assurance Agency. Samuel Danhat from Luxembourg, and Ferruccio Sariotti from Lombardy region in Italy. But in addition to these great people on this slide, there were a large number of both terminologists and laboratory medicine experts who participated in these projects that I will talk a bit more about now. And let's see if this there. Yes, background. So first, a brief history of e-health or health informatics in the European Union, and it dates back long before 2008. The European Union has funded a number of European projects. There were a number of framework programs where there were informatics topics, but something specific happened in 2008, and that was the start of EPSOS project. And EPSOS, that stands for, if I remember correctly now, European Patient Safe and Open Services. So that was a project aiming to facilitate the sharing of health data among the citizens of the European Union. Then in 2011, we had another milestone. It was the Patient Mobility Directive, and that stated that patients should be able to seek care in other European Union member states, and not just seek but also receive care, and to oversee the ability of the health systems to share data, because if you are going to give care to a patient in a foreign country, you would need access to data, preferably have access to data. So the eHealth network was formed in 2011, and that was a network of the European Union member states to agree on voluntary but still measures to support interoperability. Then we jump a bit forward. There was a lot of things happening there. The services were started, they were implemented and started, and there was started sharing of patient summary, European patient summary becoming an international patient summary, and so on. So a lot of things happened there. But in 2019, the European Commission had a recommendation about EHR exchange format. European EHR exchange format, where they stated that we should be able to share information in 5 different areas, and I will come back to those. Based on those, a common semantic strategy was formed in the same year, and something called the eHealth Network Subgroup on Semantics was started, and that was the member state experts in standard and semantics who developed guidelines to support these use cases of the EHR exchange format. And then also something happened in May of 2022. There was a proposal for new legislation in the European Union, which basically stated that these use cases in the European EHR exchange format, it would become mandatory to support those use cases in the sharing of health data. So that's a very brief history, but still this is a background of where this particular work fits in. So this European EHR exchange format had it's not a super long document, but among the recommendations that were in there, it was to support these 5 different information domains, and it was patient summary that was already developed in the EPSOS project, and a number of expanded. So it's a number of other projects. We have e-prescription and e-dispensation that has also been developed and also implemented. So you could now share e-prescriptions between European Union member states. And then they added 3 more laboratory results, images and imaging reports, and hospital discharge reports. And now we will talk about the laboratory results. So this is a framework within this work fits. A little bit about standardization in Europe. There, like we have talked a bit, quite a bit, I would say, about LOINC these last couple of days. There is another terminology called the AMPU terminology, which is used in the northern part of Europe. And both LOINC and AMPU have been in use for decades. So we will probably needs to look at alternatives to changing those out. There is a varying degree of national standardization. There's still a lot of local codes used in Europe, and that's probably also an issue that is not only related to information management, but also to the laboratory practice. The practices differ between different parts of Europe, and even within the individual member states. So one report we had from German colleagues was the difference in laboratory practice between Eastern and Western Germany. So that is an issue that kind of limits what's possible to achieve, and the barriers that exist still today. The additional data. So when we talk about laboratory sharing of laboratory data, we're often considering the test code, that is the LOINC code, for example. But there is a lot of other information that needs to go into such a report about specimen, any technique used, calibrators, reference ranges, and so on. And that is often not as well standardized, particularly when it comes to terminology. So after this, the decision to form the subgroup on semantics and the publication of this recommendation, a number of projects were started. So first, one of the most important projects was the Cross eHealth project, the one on the left bottom. That started to develop functional and technical specifications for the new use cases. So in that project, functional model of laboratory medicine, both requests and reports, was developed. Initial work to develop value sets was done. After that had done the work, the amount of work was passed to the EF network subgroup of semantics that took that experience from Cross eHealth, developed the EF network guidelines, which is the kind of high level description of the business requirements for sharing laboratory data. There were a number of other projects that followed and will follow. So there's something called Expand the Age, which is looking at hospital use of health data, which has been also looking at taking the work that Cross eHealth did and taking that further. Kind of in parallel, happening right now, HL7 Europe is developing a FHIR implementation guide based on these the guidelines that were based on the Cross eHealth work, and at the same time, the sharing of laboratory data in the European Union is supposed to, if all the plans are followed in 2025, it should supposed to go live. So there is initial development to support sharing of laboratory data in the My Health at the EU infrastructure, so that actually would allow countries to share information practically as well. So we will speak a bit more about that later there. So value set development. So the development process consisted of a number of steps, or still consists. It's trying to find out what are the existing standards that are in use today that we could use, so that we don't have develop our own. That's the best solution, if we could take someone else's work. And then if we identify gaps or where there is not sufficient agreement between standards, then we identify these candidate areas for development. And for each of those candidate areas, we collected value sets from the different member states. Member states, if they have national catalogs, or even within member states, if they have local catalogs or terminologies, or like just anything, or if there is an existing SDO developed value set, then we would use that as well. Then these could be from very many different code systems. So you could have local code systems, you could have international, it could be SNOMED, it could be anything. So then we made a decision that we aim to develop a new value set, if that was the case. And then we would decide that, well, for this value set we would aim to use this code system. And sometimes this was like an HL7 code system, sometimes it was SNOMED CT, and like Loinken, etc., was also on this list of code systems. Then we did a comparison of the different like value sets that we collected from the various sources, the member states, and then we compared, like, see which ones are commonly used between the member states and which are not as commonly used, and then we had a candidate list of elements of these value sets, and then we had a sign off by laboratory experts. So the laboratory experts in the group would have to go through this list and say that this is in, this is out, and then we had a final proposal for a value set. So this is, I think, having heard the presentation this morning, this is our way of getting the wisdom of the crowds. Although the crowd was probably a bit smaller in this case. I wouldn't call it the crowd. It was seldom very crowded at these meetings. So some example value set that we looked at. So study types, it's an element in the structure. Lab specialties to differentiate your chemistry lab from your microbiology lab and so on. Examination techniques was quite important because that's in order to interpret the results, you at least sometimes need to specify which particular technique is used. Specimen types, that's an obvious area where there is a need for standardization. Locations, where was that specimen harvested? Containers, like in the picture there, and additives might be in the. I don't know what this is from Wikipedia and Sao Paulo. I don't know what the yellow top means in Brazil. About additives and collection methods and so on. So, and I will talk a bit more about specimen types now. Yeah. So sorry. One thing more. So those who are into SNOMED and expression constraint language and stuff like that, I would probably ask, why did you go through the hassle of developing an extensional reference set where we list the individual members rather than just taking every specimen in the specimen hierarchy? And that is an interesting question. But we had the use cases that we were going to support was not just sending information between the member states in using the whatever standardized code system we suggested, but also to facilitate mapping, because we realize that there is a lot of local codes and national codes out there that needs to be mapped to these. Also translation, not if, let's say there is a SNOMED code system, not every EU member state has, well, not every EU member state is yet a member of SNOMED International, but certainly they have not translated all of SNOMED yet. That's a few member states have that translation available. But in order to allow focus on mapping and translation, we decided that we will develop extensional value sets, and eventually when we in the future we might opt to do something different, but for now at least that's what we're doing. Specimen types. Specimen types have a number of dimensions. So there's like, you have a substance, you have some morphology or locational collection. You could get it from a wound or from which has some finding site. There is a method of collection that you can have device for collecting things. Sometimes the specimen can be collected from a different species. Additives that mix into the substance, that are aimed to made to be mixed into the substance, and various other things that are added to the specimen which might not mix with the substance, and containers. So we had this logical information model, which you can almost not see to the right, that provided that information. But when it came to developing a value set for specimen types, we realized that there is no like one size fits all when it comes to the terminology. The example value sets that we collected from the member states and other standards, they were like all, like some had all of these specified, or maybe not all of them, but many of them specified, and some only specified a few of these dimensions that I've listed here. So and we kept with that level, that varying level of specification of the specimen type in our proposal. So what we did then was that we decided to use SNOMED for specimen types. And like the source location, if that was needed as an extra, if you have a, let's say, a wound specimen, you might want to specify where that wound was located if that's not given by the specimen type code. Collection method from procedure hierarchy. And then we collected these value sets from 5 different member states. And we, of course, would have liked to also have the one from Portugal. Some awkward silence here in the room. Yeah. So, but you see, you see a list probably, and the count of country. That's this is a pivot table from that software that Microsoft develops for making spreadsheets. And we collected 103 specimen types from these value sets, where the code was used in at least 2 member states. And we also worked on containers and additives. So we had 61 types of container. They were all in the physical object hierarchy. We are looking to, we have actually produced a briefing note for having additions to the concept model for physical objects. So hopefully if that passes, then we can fully define a lot of those containers. And we also found 19 additives that we are looking to use in the value sets. There. I am 2 minutes, I think, after the planned time, but
wonderful, Daniel. Thank you.
Yeah,
great timing. Any questions from anybody in the room? And I'll remind you to use the microphone, please, if you're going to ask any questions, so people online and the recording can hear you clearly.
I do realize before I added a slide that was I will add one thing. Sorry, Philippa. These value sets, or at least part of them, they are available in the ASIL 7 Europe FHIR implementation guide, which was sent out for ballot just the other day. And the link was on that slide, which is not on ask Rob. Or you could ask me. Rob has also participated. I think I see. So Sarah participated. I think that there's a number of you who participated in this work. But that's a possibility of giving comments to these value sets. You could find them there in FHIR format. There now.
Thank you. This is a layman's question, but container, how do you feel or how do you see the usage of the containers at an EU level? So what is the use case is what I'm saying. So what is the use case to use this into the MyHealth@EU specifications, for instance, sharing information about the containers, if any?
Yeah, so it is so not all these the EF network guidelines, they are supposed to support the cross-border use case, and when it comes to the cross-border use case, probably the strongest reason for having the containers would be to know if there's an additive there or not. But the EF network guidelines are not only supporting the cross-border use case, but also the national. So this is for sharing data between different laboratories inside the country, and there I think you would need that information. So for cross-border, whether it's like glass or plastic, you probably hope your laboratory would know what to use for the particular test. But sharing that information nationally, I think that's the driver for having that information in this particular specification.
I do have one question online from Stéphane Dubois.
Oh,
And the question
hi,
is,
Stefan.
how did you collect your crowd to go through this material?
My crowd. So first, I don't think it's my crowd. Secondly, it wasn't really selected. It was the participants of the Cross eHealth project. So that's the selection that happened, and we had I'm trying to remember. So we had Sweden, Germany, Czech Republic, Italy. So Portugal did actually participate, although we would have loved to have your value sets as well. I think France, Luxembourg, Spain. I'm probably missing someone, but they were
EU, basically.
EU, yeah,
Okay.
participation, and we had Rob joining, also having the international perspective, which we are so thankful for.
Okay, well, I guess that will conclude our session. Thank you, Daniel. Thanks, everybody.